Hey, it's great news for her. I don't think it's good news for us, but what are you going to do? Life goes on, right? My state of mind, Dan York. I'm pointing to a monitor that's actually not on. You caught me. I almost got away with that one, but you know, best laid plans. Watch Jess try to stay out of the television as she comes over. Great to have you aboard. Thank you very much. Sometimes we have a sloppy start, but it'll be a tight finish. I promise you. You know what? We're going to forget the rundown tonight. That thing I do when I go down the list of things that are of brainstorming, newsy concern to me, and all of my somewhat brilliant thoughts about it, because I think I want to take some quality time with my guest. As advertised, the Ed Commissioner is here, the outgoing Ed Commissioner. Here was the headline that kind of solidified it for everybody. And here's what Gina Raimondo had to say about this to WPRO News a little while back.
Well, first of all, I think she's done an excellent job, and we have to thank her for her service. And secondly, this is a very special opportunity for her. Tulsa's her hometown. So if she does get the job, I think it's too good for her to refuse. And, you know, we will wish her well and thank her so much for all she's done for us.
Thank you so much for all you've done for us.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's been awesome.
Welcome back in. Good to see you. Congratulations.
Thanks. It's very exciting.
You have a smile-pained look on your face. Well, you know that I'm not happy about this very much. So
I mean, it's with very mixed emotions.
I bet.
And it's a little bit of a roller coaster, to be honest with you, because
Sure.
I'm thrilled about it. There's so many reasons why this is the right next step for me, but it's hard. I really love it here. I'm committed to the work. I've been committed to the work. I'm excited about what we've done. I know there's so much more to do. I'm excited about the governor's leadership. So there are a lot of reasons why it feels, I feel very torn about it.
Yeah, I want to talk about it because honestly, I think in your field, it's never a full work accomplished, right?
Yeah.
You're never going to achieve educational perfection. It's never going to happen. So measuring the success, there are metrics, and then there's a level of subjectivity that'll always be built into it, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're never going to be finished in the sense that it's about continuous growth and improvement, but I know for sure that there are a number of things that we've done in the last few years that we're not going to see the full return on those here for a while. We've invested millions of dollars, for example, in transitioning to new higher expectations and building curriculum and providing professional development and all of the work that teachers and school districts have been doing for the last number of years. It's going to be exciting to watch that come to fruition.
You know, I just jotted down the word expectation as a note that I wanted to talk about later in the program, so let's get to that. But let's talk about the realities of your exits. Chicken or the egg, catch-22, how did all this come down? You told the guys on Newsmakers last week that you had actually been interviewing for the Tulsa job last fall, where you began to seek out that as a possibility.
Right.
You were contacted by them to say, hey, Dr. Gist, you should be interested in this? Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Well, we're in the middle of a campaign during all that time,
Yeah.
and no candidate is suggesting that they're completely committed to Deborah Gist, right? Mm-hmm. Unnerving?
Well, I'm used to that kind of thing. So I certainly after the primary, I felt like we had two candidates who were very committed to education, and so I was enthusiastic about that. So I entered into the conversation in Tulsa because of it being Tulsa, because it's the district where I went from kindergarten through high school. It's where my parents live. They're growing older. I want to be with them. I love the city. I've wanted to be a superintendent. I like being in the state role, but being a superintendent, you have a more direct connection to the classroom. So for all of those reasons, I entered into it. And then, there's no doubt that there was some uncertainty because there was going to be a change in administration no matter what. So I knew that that was coming.
There's this scene in Animal House where at the end the girl comes flying through the window, and the kid's reading the Playboy, and he says, Thank you, God. Because it just kind of comes out of nowhere. Have you seen the movie?
A very long time ago,
right.
yes.
Well, being the
Don't
sophomore
remember the
idiot that I
particular
am, I'd
scene,
watch
but-
it anytime I can see it. But it almost, as I'm looking at this whole landscape, I'm wondering if this was a thank you God moment for you to have actually have an opportunity pop up in your old hometown to be able to go home for all the reasons you just expressed in the middle of what was going to be some tumultuous environment here for you. Yes?
I definitely feel like it
God
was.
spoke or something?
I
or
feel
something?
well. I mean, if you want to know about my personal beliefs, yes, but it's the right thing for me right now. I feel that, I know that, and so I'm sad about leaving. I'm going to miss my team and all the work we're doing, but it's the right thing for me right now.
Well, here's the thing. I don't know if this is an answerable question, and so I'm going to ask you to be, as you've always been with me, and I think with the state, frankly, as candid as you possibly can be. If you didn't get this opportunity here, would you be talking about how hard it is to leave this state because you're being asked to exit stage left by a governor who wants to go in a different direction?
I don't know. I don't know. We didn't ever get to that point.
How come?
So,
How is it not possible?
because when the transition, when we started having conversations, I knew that I was very deep into by the time the transition was happening, multiple interviews that were very serious.
Which transition? The gubernatorial
Tulsa.
transition?
No.
Okay.
And the governor's transition, right. So when
You were
when
deep
that
into
was
Tulsa
happening,
as we're
right.
transitioning governor.
And so, this supposed deadline that was missed, that was actually just some courtesy language that was put into my contract, that had never been in there before, but it was added, I think, without a full appreciation for the fact that the first time it was going to be in there was going to be smack dab in the middle of a transition. And so there was not a need to push that conversation with the governor. Plus, my contract didn't end until the summertime anyway, and so there was no sense of urgency around it.
So you never had a direct conversation about your status with Governor Raimondo because you two were kind of looking at each other coyly, dancing. She's got political pressure. We know she had political pressure. She made some deals for tacit endorsement from the unions that had to include your status. I'm convinced of it. You had this other opportunity going on. So was there just kind of like this unspoken thing going on between you?
No, I think that, first of all, I am not aware of any kind of deals or anything like that. And based on every conversation that I've had with her, I truly believe that any decisions that she's making about leadership around education is only based on the fact that she wants an excellent education
Well, here's the
system in
thing.
the
Did
state.
she ask you, Deb, please don't go. I got work to do. You got work to do. You're in my plan. Don't go.
No. But
If-
at that point, I feel confident that this was the right next step
Well,
for
to
me.
be fair to the governor, did you telegraph to her or say to her directly, hey, by the way, I'm neck deep in this move to Tulsa. Don't even bother asking.
No, that exact conversation didn't happen either, and I don't remember exactly all the details, but I was having this conversation. We had plenty of time to talk about my future here.
Right.
I was pretty upfront at a certain point, at least, about the fact that I was having the conversation, and so there was not a decision that was made in either one way or the other.
Well, you've agreed to come on the radio, and we can dig into this even further. I forget sometimes that television is a shorter period of time, and I don't want to burden this whole show with just this stuff. So let's summarize, if we can, for this. Did you avoid being asked to leave by getting this great opportunity? In your gut, do you think that happened?
I don't think so, but I don't know.
Don't know. That's fair. Some questions are unanswerable. When we come back, we'll get to the ones that I think are. Stay with us. All right, welcome back in with Dr. Deborah Gist, our Education Commissioner. You know what? I'm gonna save some of the process stuff. I'm interested in the Tulsa process. You going out there. I guess the only question that I would pull out of that is, I noticed that even in the excitement of going home, being a lead candidate, the final candidate that was competing with you drops out. It's kind of like Gist is our person. You still got union personnel busting your tail about coming and your philosophies about standardized testing and teacher evaluations. And so, if folks in Rhode Island think we are in a silo where only this kind of fight exists here, it's everywhere, isn't it?
Well, I think I'll know more about that once I'm actually there. I think there was definitely some fear based on a perception that people have had about me, who I am, what I believe in, that type of thing. I think that I had a great visit when I was there. I met with the teachers union, I met with teachers, I met with principals, I met with parents, I met with students. I feel really confident that that I was able to dispel some of the myths about who I am as a leader and a person.
What was one myth?
I'm top down,
Yeah.
I'm arrogant, I just do it my way or the highway. Those are things that are so contrary to who I am as a person and as a leader that I think that it won't take me long to demonstrate.
You know,
that
interesting,
that's
because that jumps
not right.
ahead to another thought that I had. You talked on Newsmakers last past week about truth. That truth is really important, and truth was hard for you sometimes to manage, and/or you thought you might have been victimized by falsehoods. In the big picture, did an image of you get out there that you think over time was completely contrary to who you are?
Definitely, but I don't think I'm victimized. I think it's just, I don't personalize it. It's a tactic that's used. It happens. I don't feel, I don't feel injured by it or anything like that.
You told a story about your discussion of teacher morale in an NEA newsletter that had allegedly quoted you about being unconcerned about teacher morale. That one hit you in the gut, correct?
Well, it was just wrong. I mean, it was just completely not true. And what I said to them, which is true, is that not only did I never say that, I would never even think something like that.
Did you make that public? I mean, news cycles go by. I'm getting old. I forget. Did you ever have a public discussion of that?
No.
Why not? If you poetically talked about last week the idea of some teacher working on her stuff, grading her stuff, reads her newsletter, and you see Gist doesn't care about morale. Well, screw her. I mean, who the hell, blah blah blah. You didn't use that language, but just that whole thing. Why would you stand for that? Why wouldn't you make that a public discussion? How dare they?
I don't know. I mean, it's a good question. I do remember having a conversation very early on with the leadership there and asking about what this is about, this kind of thing, and not getting a very satisfactory response from that. And I think the thing that I did over the last few years is just try to keep communicating directly and through social media, through school visits, through work groups and task forces and different things to try to build relationships with teachers. But it's hard to do when they're getting a very different message from the folks who have a direct relationship with them.
Am I hearing that you think sometimes you were on the receiving side of foul play?
No, and here's what
That's
I want to
foul
be
play if it's not true.
Here's what I want to be clear about. This is not about me. The reason I brought up that conversation is because I think it's important for whoever is the next commissioner, and when they begin to work with the teachers and they begin to work with the public and parents and students and everyone else, that people enter into that and begin to form their opinions about the next commissioner based on multiple sources. And interestingly, it's exactly what we're teaching our students in school to do, to read critically, to get multiple sources before they're drawing conclusions, to use evidence to draw conclusions. That's what I'm encouraging people to do. So it's not about, what happened. It's about what needs to happen in the future.
No, but I think it's a service for you to tell the story because there will be a new commissioner. And Gina Raimondo, my instinct is that Gina Raimondo, our new governor, is going to guide that board to find someone who is also a change agent like you. She can't afford not to. You may not be the player that satisfied the political equation based on your tenure and the challenges and just the unions wearing the current commissioner down. But we're not going backwards.
No.
I hope we're
no,
not going
I think
backwards.
Education is on the move. The state is on the move.
Standardized testing will be a conversation. Teacher evaluations will be a conversation. The next commissioner will have to have that conversation. And you're kind of leaving some notes subtly here about what they may be involved with. Let me ask you this. You also talked about the idea that for solutions, you all too often saw that folks were coming with their helmets on, ready for a battle rather than a working solution for the greater good. Elaborate.
I would say that frequently, the definition of collaboration is if you do it exactly the way I want you to, then that's what I want. And if you don't, then you're not collaborating. And that's not collaboration. And so what happened time and time again was that we would sit down, we would have a policy, we would work through it, we'd make changes and adjustments, we would delay, we would modify, we would, again and again and again based on feedback, surveys and focus groups and task forces and all kinds of feedback. But then it was as if none of that happened. And so what I was trying to say
Every day was a new confrontation.
Right. And so what I was trying to say is that I think that I would encourage the state to try to begin to explicitly address this culture that exists, that I've observed, about believing that everything has to be confrontational. We've made huge progress in the last few years as a state. We now are consistent with our peers and in math in the New England states that share our assessment. We're ahead of them in reading and writing. We exceeded the national average on the NAEP, which is the nation's report card, for the first time in the history of the assessment.
So why do you think the culture
Graduation
exists?
rates are up, dropout rates are down, things are on the move.
We'll definitely have time to judge your report card, which I do think was lots of progress. But why do you think the culture exists that you're talking about?
I don't know. I imagine it's historical, and I don't think this is something. I think these are deep cultural expectations because honestly, I don't think people always see it, and that's when you know that it's something that's just a part of the culture.
All right, we'll come back. We'll finish up on that and talk about what to expect next. Stay with us. There's Bob Walsh, NEA Executive Director. The AFT and the NEA are the two unions here. When you talk about this culture, by the way, are you talking about the unions exclusively?
No, I'm not actually. I think that it is, whoever is entering into a conversation, I think it's oftentimes both sides.
School committees are expecting fights with unions. Unions are expecting fights with school committees. School committees are expecting fights with the state. The state's expecting fights with the schools. There's
city councils and
all the time.
School committees and yeah.
So what do you do? Maybe, wave a wand. You start singing "We're all in this together." I mean, what do you do? What do you do?
Well, singing is always good. That helps.
Well, go ahead.
I think that if people, my just saying this is not going to make any difference. But I just hope that people will begin to question, and maybe people completely disagree with me, and that's totally fine. But if it resonates with people when they hear me saying this, I hope that perhaps there will begin to be an awareness about that we can start to see people coming to a conversation and saying, what is it that we're both trying to accomplish, and then working through the differences about how to get there. But also ultimately, once that decision is made, then everyone needs to support it. Because like I said a minute ago, what I found myself over the last few years doing is that we would make adjustments and change and make adjustments and change, and it was like the goalpost was constantly being moved.
When by support it, you mean you can still use your First Amendment and say, not my choice, but I'm going to work my best to make it work.
Right.
That's what support's supposed to mean.
And recognizing that there were that things were improved based on their involvement.
This discussion of moving it back, the ultimate, I think, disaster and one of the worst governmental things I've ever seen, and we've talked about it in previous shows, is the General Assembly, not at the 11th hour, at 1 a.m. to midnight, like after midnight, pulling out that kneecap requirement as a graduation thing. You had so many years of even with the prior Education Commissioner discussion of this, and then the date for 2014, and then whoosh, there it goes. And they asked for 2017, and you came back and said, "Oh yeah, how about 2020?" Almost like, all right. Your hands were almost thrown up in the middle of that whole situation, weren't they?
Well, it was actually because the reason that I'm recommending 2020, and this is still something the board needs to take action on, the reason I'm recommending 2020 as a requirement for all districts, they could still start doing it in 2017 as the law would allow, but we're transitioning to a new assessment right in the midst of this. There are reasons technically that I think it makes more sense. Plus, when it happens, the state cannot waver again.
Oh, come on. I mean, that's the nature of the game. I mean, it's just there's always, with this culture you're talking about.
But I think if people remember that this happened, and everybody knows that 2020 is the year.
Really, 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 really.
And yes, for real, this is going to be the case where we are going to make sure, by the way, that those graduation requirements are improved. You know, that there are improvements made to what worked and what didn't work as well, which we were doing anyway for this coming year, we were working on. But now there's time to implement that well.
All right, do us all a favor. Come back for a true exit interview, talking, education stuff before you go, okay?
Okay.
You've got a few months, right? Before
I
you're
would
out
love
of
to
here?
talk about education.
Yeah, other than just this stuff. Hey,
Yes.
You got to talk about the personnel stuff. That's the newsy stuff. Our bad break, your good break. Congratulations,
Thank you.
and we'll talk
Thanks.
soon.
I appreciate it.
Final thought when we come back. Stay with us. The culture conversation that I just had with Commissioner Deb Gist is, I think, a fascinating one. I think she is sending us some messages here that we doggone better well listen. Listen, she's not perfect. She's not canonized here. But she's a working professional who came in highly regarded, worked very hard, got some serious money out of the federal government to improve things here, try to build some consensus for the change, and then put her foot down on change that needed to be done. And a lot got done, but when it came to some real crux issues, deadlines were pushed back and politics came into play, and the gubernatorial campaign politics, I'm quite certain, would have had her a sitting duck. So this break that she got to get this Tulsa job is great for her. I still think bad for us. We'll see what the new commissioner brings. It could be wonderful new life. But this commissioner will have to leave some exit thoughts that we need to pay attention to. Seriously. On a much lighter note, here's a guy who's also building a program, Coach Hurley, after a huge win last night over UMass.
It was fun to be a part of. It was fun to walk out of the tunnel and feel the energy and electricity from the crowd. The students, fans were incredible, and it's all because of the work that these young guys and this team, and TJ and Gil have done.
You can go on about the players, but beating UMass and now remaining tied for first place in the Atlantic 10 is just a huge thing for the University of Rhode Island's basketball program. Having a near-capacity crowd, screaming bloody murder, making it an awful place for a visiting team to play was a great thing. I'm biased, I'm the PA guy, but the truth is that it brings a spirit to the state when we've had nothing but snow. And then you get PC, the lead program, I say that in quotes, still winning. It's going to be a good march. And yes, Virginia, there will be a march and there will be grass. So, good stuff. We'll see you on the radio tomorrow on WPRO at noontime.